So we'll start with the video, then we'll do the presentation. And it takes me just a minute to open it in Zoom. So thank you, Story of Stuff, for making that awesome video. And now I'm just going to go right into the presentation so that we can do the action that we have planned for later in this event, and then you can be on your way. Okay, so if you've never been in a presentation with us before, my name is Alexis Goldsmith, and again, I'm the organizing director at Beyond Plastics. We are a national nonprofit dedicated to ending plastic pollution based out of Bennington College in Bennington, Vermont. So as I said, today's info session is about our new guide. It's called Choose to Reuse. And we're going to talk about what's in the guide and exactly what you can do to help your local Meals on Wheels programs make this switch to reusable containers and why you should do that. So the guide is available on our website at beyondplastics.org/Meals on Wheels, and I'm also going to email it to you after today's presentation. Here's what's in it. So it includes practical advice on how to wash trays or how to work with a dishwashing service. So this is basically step-by-step guidance for meal programs to make the switch to reusables. It also has 4 unique case studies from Meals on Wheels programs across the United States that are using reusable trays, and tons of additional resources, including a living list of reusable trays and where to buy them, sample language for letters to clients to return the trays, fact sheets on reusables and compostables, which they can use to share info about their reuse program. We have a cover letter for state legislators explaining why funding for reuse should be included in state budgets. We also have a memo that Beyond Plastics used in New York State to request our legislators for funding for Central New York's Meals on Wheels program in the state budget. So you can adapt that memo and see exactly how we asked our legislators for support on this. We also have a sample narrative for grant funding. Thank you, Spectrum, for sharing that language with us. And we have 2 calculators which I'm going to go over in a second. So we basically tried to do as much of the work for the meal program as possible. They just need to actually implement the reusable program. Here are the two calculators that are in the guide. So we have a budget comparison, so they can enter their information to compare how much they're spending currently on the single-use trays and how much they could save by switching to reusable trays. So all they need to enter is the number of meals they serve per year, the number of clients that they have, how much they're currently spending per tray on the single-use trays, how much they are looking to spend per tray on the reusable trays. If they need to buy a dishwasher, they can enter that information, and then it automatically calculates how much they would save in year 1 and in year 2. The second calculator is the environmental savings calculator. So all they need to do is enter the number of trays they're using currently, and usually it's the number of meals they serve per year. And that automatically calculates the amount of plastic waste that they would save per year and the amount of landfill space that they would save per year. And that's based on the most common type of tray used by Meals on Wheels programs, which is the #1 polyethylene tray. The #1 polyethylene tray, the 3-compartment tray with plastic film. So that's what that's based on. So just a little bit about Beyond Plastics, because I found that as I've been doing this project, a lot of people thought that we were selling trays. That's not the case. We don't sell anything because we're a nonprofit, but we do care about saving plastic waste. That is our mission, and we use education policy and organizing to end plastic pollution. And we just really want to help Meals on Wheels because this is a win-win for programs, and I'm going to explain why. But first, I need to give some background on why we care about plastic waste. So saving plastic waste is really important because plastic pollution has become one of the greatest social and environmental justice challenges of our time. In the United States in particular, we discard more than 35 million tons of plastic every year. That is the most per capita in the world. Where is all this plastic coming from? Well, data tells us that single-use plastics are the largest source of the problem. Roughly half of all new plastic produced today is intended for a single use, which means it is used for a very short time and then it's discarded where it persists in the environment for generations or is turned into air pollution in an incinerator. At the same time, most of this plastic is not recycled or even recyclable. Even though plastic products may show the chasing arrows symbol, this number is actually a resin code and it's not an indicator that the product is recyclable. In the United States, the plastics recycling rate is currently less than 6%. Food containers in particular are not recyclable because they are contaminated with food. So if you use the plastic trays with a plastic film, or if a program uses those plastic trays with a plastic film, that also makes them a mixed material, which is not recyclable. Polystyrene is not recyclable because there's no market for post-consumer polystyrene. And the black plastic trays that are used by a lot of programs are actually invisible to sensors in recycling systems, so they don't get sorted into the recycling. So again, even though these containers might be advertised as recyclable by the manufacturer, they are not in fact recycled. The truth is, recycling of plastics is extremely difficult and expensive, and it has never worked to displace the use of new plastics. In fact, production of new plastics in recent years has boomed. Since 1950, the world has produced nearly 10 billion tons of plastics, which means there is now more than 1 ton of plastic for every person on Earth. More than half of that plastic was produced after the year 2000. So we see a rise in production rates. This is especially significant because we're looking at this by weight, and plastic is very lightweight, meaning that it has a much greater volume per ton than other materials. Production will only continue to increase unless we make deliberate decisions to reduce our dependence on single-use plastics. Unfortunately, most of the plastic that is counted as recycled in the United States is actually shipped overseas, where it winds up in open dumps, neighborhoods, rivers, and beaches. plastic waste dumped by wealthy countries has led to immense challenges for communities that have contributed much less to the problem. So, end of the day, the bottom line is that plastic is simply not recyclable, and we cannot recycle our way out of this problem. But the good news is that we can quickly make progress to solve this problem with reusables, which actually work to displace new plastics over recycling. And reusables that reduce plastic waste also help mitigate climate change and environmental injustice. And the reason for that is that plastics are made out of oil and gas. In the United States, most single-use plastics today are made out of fracked ethane gas. The production of plastics requires a long series of infrastructure to turn fossil fuels into plastic products, and that infrastructure is very polluting. In October of 2020, Beyond Plastics released a report on the life cycle emissions from plastic production, use, and disposal in the United States. The report found that plastics are on track to exceed the emissions of coal-fired power plants by the year 2030. The report also found that emissions from plastics contribute to inequality in the United States. 90% of the emissions from the production of plastics are released into just 18 communities. And these communities are 2/3 more likely to be Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities. So that being said, everybody is affected by plastic pollution. Plastics don't biodegrade, but they do turn into microplastics, which can be ingested or inhaled from plastic in the environment and plastic packaging. So with all that being said, why do we want to focus on reusable containers for Meals on Wheels programs? Well, Meals on Wheels programs are uniquely situated to be a leader in reuse. And I commend all the programs, if there's any on this call, for the work that they are doing to keep older adults and adults with disabilities fed. Hunger work is really important, and it is our goal in this to support Meals on Wheels programs. So Meals on Wheels, the reason why reuse works is that they're closed loop systems. So they see the same clients again and again. And the idea is that when new meals are delivered, the used trays are picked up and returned to the kitchen to be washed, sanitized, and used again. And reusables aren't just good for the planet. They can also save Meals on Wheels programs significant cash, especially if they're able to buy and wash the trays in-house. So here's an example. This is a cost comparison of reusable versus disposable trays for the Syracuse, New York Meals on Wheels. I prepared this budget analysis because we were asking the state legislature to include funding for the program to purchase the reusable trays. So the biggest budget challenge is they got to buy the trays, and they might have to buy a dishwasher. So I compared what they're currently spending on single-use plastics to those costs. So this program has 350 clients. They serve 200,000 meals every year, and they're currently spending about 30 cents per disposable plastic tray. That comes to 60,000 a year, approximately, that they're spending on the single-use trays. Now, to purchase enough reusable polypropylene trays for the program, they would need 2 per client plus 20% of that number, because we estimate that 20% of the reusable trays are going to be lost. And that estimate is based on the case studies that are in the guide, the 4 case studies, and how much they told me that they were losing each year and had to reorder. So in the first year, they would need to spend about $8,400 on $10 trays. Now, the trays can be more expensive, they can be cheaper, it just really depends on which one they're buying, but this is the most common one that I had seen programs using, so that's what the number is based on. Then a commercial dishwasher, middle of the road, about $10,000, could be as much as $15,000, could be as little as $7,000, just depending on what style and model they get. So they're spending about $20,000 up front, but they're saving $40,000 in the first year because they don't have to buy those single-use trays. And then, as you can see, in the second year, they save a lot more because they don't have to buy the dishwasher, and they only have to replace the trays that were lost over that first year. So it's a significant savings, enough to hire a full-time staff person. So I need your help to share this information with Meals on Wheels programs, with your state legislators, your state representatives to get funding for this, and with your area offices on aging. We've done the work to write the guide, and we really just need to get it out there because Meals on Wheels are very decentralized programs. They're all independent. It's a horizontal network of programs, and I can't be everywhere in the US to talk to every single program. So it would be really helpful if you could help me and send this guide to them. So here's what's actually in the guide. So there's two options, two main ways that Meals on Wheels programs can implement reusable trays. And the first is to buy and wash their own containers in-house. The pros of this is that it's very cost effective. This is the most cost effective option, as reusables quickly pay for themselves, and even modestly sized programs, as we saw, could save tens of thousands of dollars a year. It also significantly reduces plastic waste, which I'm going to show you in a minute. It improves the food presentation and the client experience. So those case studies that are in the guide, they report that the clients are happy with the program and that they support a reusable tray program. It reduces greenhouse gas emissions because you're preventing that single-use plastic from being used, and you're also reducing strain on municipal resources by preventing waste that would have to go to a landfill or an incinerator. So this is a win-win for municipalities. Cons, so you need that upfront cash to purchase the trays, and it's not insignificant for programs that their first mission is to feed hungry people. It also requires a change in the kitchen workflow. So you need a dishwasher and kitchen space, and normally the programs, once the meals go out, if they're in disposables, the kitchen would wash the prep area and then the kitchen would be done. But in a reusable system, the kitchen staff have to wait for the drivers to come back with the trays, and then they have to wash the trays. So it's a slight change in the kitchen workflow. So if it isn't feasible for programs to purchase and wash their own trays, they can contract with a dishwashing service. So the pros, all the dishwashing is done for you, easy peasy, really nice. No dishwasher required, no kitchen updates required, no upfront cost to buy the trays. It also saves space in tight kitchens because they don't have to store the trays, and they also don't have to air dry the trays. Also significantly reduces plastic waste, and there's no change in the kitchen workflow. Also supports a reuse economy, which I think this is a big win for municipalities because dishwashing services tend to be small businesses, and they need, this supports reuse in other ways. So the cons, this can be more expensive than single-use trays because they have to pay the fee to wash the trays. The service is not available in all areas. This is still relatively uncommon, but it is growing. And you may not get a choice in the type of container because you're not buying the containers yourself. So your options are what the dishwashing service can provide. With either method, the programs need to be able to get the trays back. So this is key for the program to be cost effective. So the way to do that is to get some dishwasher safe labels. You can get those online or through a restaurant outlet. You can implement a tally system to keep track of where the trays are. So when you give a tray, you give a check. When you get the tray back, you give a check. Make sure to brief the clients when they enroll that they will be receiving meals in reusable containers, and also send periodic reminders to clients and their families to return the containers. And if a particular client is not returning the containers, you can provide their meal in a disposable moving forward so that you're not constantly losing containers. But however the program plans to do reuse, education and outreach is absolutely key. So making sure the staff and volunteers are on the same page before the program starts, and budgeting that you will lose at least 20% of the trays, especially in the beginning. Dishwashing, sanitation, and health. So this is the big question for a lot of people. So the clients are asked to rinse the trays. They don't have to wash them. If programs need to buy a dishwasher or hire a dishwasher, it will still be cost effective over the cost of the disposable trays. The commercial dishwashers are extremely efficient. They can wash hundreds of trays in under an hour. So the dishwashing really doesn't take that long. And also because their rinse cycles reach high temperatures, the trays are sanitized in the dishwasher and they air dry quickly. So the trays can then be stacked for the next day. So most likely the program is already preparing and serving food, so they would already know the requirements for food safety. It's important that the used or dirty trays don't cross-contaminate with the clean trays or clean dishes. They can't be in a food prep area. They can't be in the same bag as meals to be served. The trays do need to be air dried. This is the Department of Health requirement. So they need enough space to air dry them. But again, the commercial dishwashers reach hot temperatures and they can stack them pretty quickly after they wash them. And then finally, a separate permit is not required if they're already serving food. Where to get funding. So again, this is where we need your help sharing this info with Meals on Wheels programs. So Plastic Free Restaurants is a nonprofit organization. They subsidize reusable meal containers and they will reimburse programs up to 50 cents per reusable plastic container. And they provide even more funds if the container is not made of plastic. We need to talk to our state legislators, and we're going to do that in just a moment about including funding for reusables in state budgets. And then again, Rotary clubs are in most cities in the United States, and they provide small grants for community projects. So now hopefully I still have everyone's attention. We're going to do a quick action, and we're actually going to email our state legislators about including funding for reusable Meals on Wheels in the 2023 state budget. So I'm going to put in the chat a cover letter, which you can copy and paste into the body of an email, and then you'll need to fill in the blanks, the highlighted portions. And I will also put in the chat a link to find your state legislator, so you can just email them. So yeah, no, you weren't expecting this. Here's the cover letter. And again, you'll just copy and paste it into the body of an email and then fill it into the email. And then here is the link for this to look up your state representatives. So we'll all just open that and send them this cover letter, which has the guide linked in it. And hopefully they respond. So we'll take about maybe like 6 or 7 minutes to do that. I feel like I should be playing music. I should have had my violin out for this one. This is very appropriate, by the way, because today is World Refill Day. So if you want to mention that in your email to legislators, refill is a really good way to honor a planet that is indisposable. Theodora, yes, polypropylene is a form of plastic. So we went back and forth on this, and I can answer this in more detail because I get this question a lot, and I will answer all the questions at the end. So if you're having trouble doing this, I'll give everybody a couple minutes, but I'll just show you how to do it. And then you can also do it later because I'm going to email this to you. So people are in the middle of this, they don't want to hijack or they don't want to take over the screen. Is anybody able to send the email, or are most people having trouble? You can also do federal reps because Meals on Wheels programs receive funding through the Older Americans Act, which is a federal program. So they could allocate funding in that legislation for reuse. But at the state level, it's faster to get funding. And this is a win-win for states because it reduces the waste in the municipal stream. The Spectrum Community Services, they are still using reusables and they are actually expanding their reuse program. Subject line for the email, let's see, I thought there was a subject line in there. Maybe not. You could put a budget request for meal program, senior meal program, or a budget request for reusables for senior meal program. You know, something straightforward. Thank you, Laura. Thank you for recognizing World Refill Day. Give people just a minute to finish up, and then I'll show those who are having trouble how to do it. Thank you, Karith.
Thank you.
All right, is it okay if I take over the screen for just a minute? Show people how to do this, or are people still writing? I'll take that as a yes. Okay. So here's the link to find your state legislator. And I'm gonna, the Zoom thing is getting in my way. Okay, so you click on that to find your state legislators. Then you're gonna enter your address. I'll just put in my zip code. And there it comes out my 2 legislators. And I will click on the first one, Jake Ashby, and there is his email right there, ashbyj@nyassembly.gov. So this is my assembly member. So then I'll just go to my email and I'll put his address in there. I'm gonna make the subject line, celebrate, budget opportunity. That's catchy, right? For senior meal programs to save money in, what's my district? 107, in District 107. And then I'll open the cover letter. And because this is, oops, didn't want to copy it, wanted to open it. There we go. Because this is a Google Doc, you can only copy and paste. You can't edit right in the doc. So I'll just copy it. And then I paste it into the email. And then I have to fill all this in. So the date is going to come up on the email no matter what I do. Dear Representative Ashby, the voice of District 107. as you consider the 2023 budget. And you can read this and customize it if you want. I've already read it, so I know what it says. Can save. I'm just going to put our Meals on Wheels programs. Delivery programs in Washington County is my county. And then that's it. And then finally, I will sign it, my name, my address. You want to send me fan mail? And then I'll put my phone number there too, in case he wants to follow up with me. Okay, that's it. So super simple. If you didn't get to finish that, I will send you the link in the follow-up email to finish that. And I really hope you do. And you can also send it to your association on aging in your state or your county and let them know that this is an opportunity as well. So just a few more slides to finish what's in the guide, and then I will take questions. So in the resources in the guide, we have a whole living list of where to buy trays. So lots of different styles and vendors that programs can look at. Also where to find dishwashing services. So it's pretty limited, but major cities more and more have these services. So you can explore that as well, and your program can. And then just to put it into perspective on the environmental savings here. So conservatively, Meals on Wheels programs serve 2.5 million seniors in the United States. This number is from 2018, so I know they're serving a lot more because at the height of the pandemic, their demand was up 80% for meals. So conservatively, we're estimating they're serving 646 million meals every year. So if all of those trays are in the single-use polyethylene tray, that represents 45.6 million pounds of plastic waste and 1.1 million cubic yards of landfill space every year. So this is why we need your help to have an impact. This is really a no-brainer, but we know meals programs, they don't have a lot of bandwidth because, again, they're a hunger relief program and they're serving some vulnerable people. So we need to help them and support them to find these opportunities. Again, the guide is at beyondplastics.org/Meals on Wheels. I hope you'll read it if you haven't already and share it. And if you're not already following us, please follow us. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And there's my email at the bottom if you want to reach out. I'm always happy to chat. And with that, we've got plenty of time for questions. Happy to take questions, or I can just answer questions in the chat. So if you want to take yourself off mute, we can chat. We have, Patricia, we have thought about reaching out to AARP. We don't have a lot of contacts with AARP. Oh. So if you know AARP or you're with AARP, help me get my foot in the door.
I am.
You are, Kareth. Oh, great. Can you send me an email?
Yes.
What is your role with AARP?
So far, I've been a member, but because I have 20 plus years of being a public health advocate, I work with them just on sort of content at this point. So I would be curious to work with their, maybe they have budget for this. I mean, just funding for this, if not an awareness post that would be easy enough to get them to shout out.
Great. Yes, let's talk. Let's schedule a time to talk. Theodora.
Yes. My question is, wouldn't this be a great opportunity for some restaurants to have a side business of cleaning the trays?
I'm sorry, you glitched there. Could you say that again?
Wouldn't this be a great opportunity for restaurants in towns to have a side business of cleaning the trays because they already have commercial dishwashers?
I think that's a possibility. And we've talked about that, either partnering with restaurants or paying them. So that would be on a, nobody's I haven't seen that model yet, but I think that's a good idea if you can find a restaurant that is willing to work with your program to do it, or a church or a hotel or a school, anybody with a commercial dishwasher. Christopher?
Hi, thank you so much for your work and for this presentation. I thought I had a question, but I guess I don't. It's more like a comment, so I'll just say it anyways. I'm with the County of San Mateo, and you and I have talked before, but I am leading a project within the county to pilot reusable food trays at our Meals on Wheels programs. My big ambition is to convert all our Meals on Wheels programs to reusables. And even when I find a Meals on Wheels provider that is willing, one of the big stumbling blocks, one of the big obstacles is an appropriate tray. You deal with consumers or clients that have arthritic hands. So you need to find something that is sealable, freezable, so that can so you can freeze meals at times. And so do you know if any of the containers on your list, I mean, I can go through it myself, but if any of those containers are sealable in an appropriate way for freezers?
Yes, for freezers, that I don't have as good of information on, but the ones from the Meals on Wheels store are what programs use. And they don't have a silicone seal like a Tupperware container does, because the silicone can attract moisture and it gets moldy. But they actually, when you put the hot food in it, because it causes the plastic to expand a little bit, it actually vacuum seals it when you have the hot food. And then the trays have, I have my sample trays in the other room, but they have two little tabs on them that are actually easier for arthritic hands to open than the ones that have the silicone seal. So they're designed for Meals on Wheels specifically. And then there are like the Go Box trays that are like the clamshell trays, and they have a clasp in the front. And that's what Spectrum is using currently.
Okay, great, thank you.
But I don't see why you couldn't freeze meals in the Meals on Wheels store tray.
Yeah, especially after they've been vacuum sealed by the heat.
Well, they're vacuum sealed when it's hot. Yeah, it's like, when you're canning something. So somebody did ask this question to one of the programs, and they'd have frozen the meals in the Meals on Wheels store tray. Because there's a gap, like it's not like a film seal, they do get some freezer burn on the food. But I think if you cool it down to room temperature before you put it in the freezer, it's probably less likely to happen. So thanks. Yeah, we should catch up, Christopher. I'd really like to hear how it's going in San Mateo County.
Oh, great. Yeah, I have a couple lined up, but I don't want to eat up time. But yeah, I'll be in contact with you. We can talk more.
Okay. Seema?
Yeah, thank you, Alexis. So I have two questions. One, some of those pictures that you were showing, the reusable containers, plastic containers, they looked really flimsy. So I was wondering, how many years do they last with the washing? And my second question is, do you have any examples of people using stainless steel trays just because of the health impacts of using plastic with food?
Right. So the trays do last a long time, especially the Meals on Wheels store trays, the 3-compartment trays. The program that uses those, I've talked to 2 programs that have been doing it for 20 years, and they both said they still have some of the original trays. It's more losing trays. Then the clamshell trays, which aren't as sturdy, those are designed to last for 1,000 uses. Now, of course, things happen. People use them for ashtrays, or they might have significant wear and tear, but from what I've heard, they last at least 4 years. And the clamshell style ones, the reusable polypropylene, those are environmentally preferable after 10 uses to the disposable polyethylene. So you're still getting a significant savings there. And they're also designed to be ground down and recycled at the end of their lifetime. The stainless steel. So with Meals on Wheels, it's more challenging because we're dealing with seniors, people with disabilities. So they have to be lightweight. They can't be hot to the touch. They have to be shatterproof, and they have to be microwavable. So the only material I've found that fits all that criteria is the reusable polypropylene trays. Now, with like a school or maybe like a summer feeding program for kids, you might be able to do the stainless steel because you're not as worried about, you know, if they drop it, it's not going to break, but you might have more options. But for seniors, it's limited. Steve?
Yeah, thank you. Actually, Seema took my question about materials and life cycle for the plastics. So I will pivot to question 2, which are you considering working with as a pilot, choosing some school districts? That's another closed system, you know, with school lunch programs.
We have not dedicated staff time to schools. There are programs that do, and there was a really good guide that came out last year for schools, but I think this material overlaps with schools, and schools are even better situated because the containers never leave the lunchroom. So I think absolutely. And California just introduced a bill to establish a grant program for schools to buy reusables. So I think that could be replicated all over the United States. So yes, both our kids and our babies. I mean, our babies and our seniors. Samantha?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. Thank you so much. First of all, I found all this fascinating. I love the video and I love the content that you're publishing. My first quick question, I think you've already touched on it a little bit, but just in terms of the messaging, right? So I understand all of the factors as to why you've chosen the polypropylene products. But as a movement, right, with our allies, it's been a really hard pill to swallow to explain why we're trying to get away from plastics by promoting more use of plastics. And I just wonder, do you have any 1 or 2 good bullet points that you use for your audiences? And then my second quick question just is on product loss. Have you guys been tracking at all the product loss rate?
So excellent questions. So first of all, the bullet points. So for the most part, we're trying to talk to Meals on Wheels programs and not environmental organizations and legislators. So what I actually lead with is the cost savings, because that's what the programs really care about. I mean, they're really strapped, especially with the demand going up and food costs and COVID. It's been a lot. And so it's kind of paradoxical. They don't have a lot of extra bandwidth to think about this, but at the same time, the disposables just get more and more expensive and demand goes up. And if they switch now, it'll really benefit them. So that's what I lead with. And then for the second question, or the second point, of course, we would prefer to not use plastic at all for a lot of reasons. But if you've ever worked in hunger, you have to understand that the person that you're feeding is the most important thing. And so we have to find a material that works for seniors. And second, they are environmentally preferable if they get reused. That's the key, is reuse is better than disposables. And then third, can somebody please invent a material that isn't plastic that would meet all their needs? I'm sure you'll be a millionaire if you do. Does that help? Good, okay. Let's see, any other questions? Yes, the meals, their containers are microwavable. Are we getting pushback from the plastics industry? I don't know if the plastics industry has caught wind of this, but the plastics industry tends to say that disposables are safer, which has been debunked. We know that reusables are just as safe if they're washed and sanitized and you follow health guidelines. What about compostable? So there's a lot of debate about compostable, and I go into this in the guide. So we don't advocate for compostable as a replacement for single use because it's still a single use product for a lot of reasons. So one is there's no guidelines for what compostable means, basically, for what that word means. So it may say compostable, but it could have PFAS in it. PFAS is used as a grease barrier in food packaging, and we definitely don't want PFAS, which is the forever chemical that doesn't biodegrade and can be contributing to systemic health problems in our compost. Second thing is that composting infrastructure is not available everywhere. So unless it's as easy as putting it in your curbside bin to compost, the senior is still going to just throw it in the trash, where it's going to go to a landfill or an incinerator. Third, the compostables are just as expensive or more expensive than the single-use disposable plastic trays. So it's still costing programs a lot of money, if not more money, to do the compostable. And again, the compostable doesn't always mean compostable. A lot of compostables have a plastic film on them, which winds up getting with the compost. So overall, we want to promote reusables. Is it unsafe to heat the plastic? That is an excellent question. So we know that thousands of chemicals are added to plastics. And again, while we would prefer not to have any plastic, we're limited in the material choice. And it is our opinion that the sturdier reusable trays are most likely safer because they're designed to be reused over and over again, and there's likely less leaching. I'm not going to say that there's no leaching, but the black plastic, we definitely have concerns about microwaving those. So thank you everybody for coming. If you still have your hand up, I'll stay if you still have questions. But please do stay in touch. If you hear back from your legislators or your programs, I will meet with you. I will meet with your legislator. I'll meet with your program to explain this. I'll put you in touch with the programs that are doing reusables. You know, I'll help in however way I can. And I want to hear from you because we want to hear if this is working, if this information is getting out there. So thank you. I'm going to send the recording, the guide, and the instructions to email your legislator tomorrow morning. And please email me, stay in touch. I really appreciate everyone coming tonight. Have we quantified the utility cost for dishwashing? We haven't quantified the utility cost for dishwashing, but I did ask the programs how long it takes to do the dishwashing, and every one of them, even the larger programs, said it takes less than an hour. So with the amount that you're saving, you could hire a full-time dishwasher, but you probably won't need to do that. Theodora, did you have a question?
No, I just wanted to thank you for your presentation. It's something I've been concerned about for a long time.
Well, thank you for coming. Do keep in touch. I'm going to end it here. Enjoy your evening, everybody. Enjoy the sunset. Thank you. Good night.